Michael Wickerson here at Wickerson Studios. I'm going to try again to kind of show the direction I'm going. I know there's a little bit of a mystery as to what I'm doing here. I don't, I'm not employed to do this, and I am in it for the sheer, mystery of it all, I guess. And over the time with Grasshopper, I've gravitated really away from the window in Rhino and back into the canvas and towards the left. So trying to find attributes of points, and that's pushed me to programming. And I think this is a great example of how I kind of come at making work. So what you have is this rotating form. I've got it baked here, and behind it I have how it alters and changes. And how I feel most in control, even though this is really kind of spontaneous in its construction. So I'm going to show you basically. I pulled here this huge canvas of not only all my nodes that are up in these windows, C# nodes that I'm using and generating from RaiISys components, from RaiISys Rhino geometry, changing some, making some for myself, and the Warsaw University of Technology, which really gets down to the nuts and bolts of learning any programming language, which I think is amazing. So literally, this is like mixing a palette if you're a painter. And yes, there's some more difficult ones and some really hard ones, but I'm just scripting around it. I think I'm just going to cluster around this thing a bunch of little paintings. And this is the mode I most confidently like working in. I'm going to take off the turntable, take off the, I think I have to take the turntable off first. Basically take a look at what's been generated, what you have a chance to change. And it is data driven. I mean, it's absolutely my infatuation with, numbers and what you can do with that to change the form of things. And there's nothing complex geometrically in this, except it becomes very complex because of the data driving it. So what I did was I jumped in here and I was like, okay, how can I start a script? So let's take a look at the first script I brought in here. First of all, I like to start a script with gene pool. I think it's amazing because you end up with these number sliders that you can have total control over editing. Once you get a form you kind of like, you can kind of move it 10% away from what you want. And in a sense, I guess that's kind of optimizing it to what you want. If you really don't like what you want, well, you can get in there and blast it apart. But chances are you're going to script some of your surface edits. And I think I've got to pull that one back this way and this one this way to pull back a form that actually lofts. If not, I'm stuck here trying to find out what I just did. And I blew it out of the water. So I better just play with it until I get a form again. And that's the problem with the gene pool, is you can make a real monster. It's generally going to be close to what that other form is just by the nature of how it's scripted. So what I did was I did a for each loop. So basically I've gone in here. I knew how to use gene pools before, double clicking on them, editing them, setting how many you want, what's the guide. I keep my numbers very, very small. My geometry is incredibly tiny. And that's because I like trigonometry and I like dealing between 1 and 0 as much as possible. So basically a for each loop is pretty awesome. It's a little script here that builds a list of doubles, and for each value in that list, it's going to add that to the list, and you're going to have these multiplied numbers, which is really nice because I have a little multiplier tied on there. So this becomes the multiplier to that, and this one comes in as a list, but this one's actually coming in as a list of lists, which is interesting as to why that is. Not sure why I did that, but it definitely, I guess I grafted it. I'm afraid to see what happens if I don't. I don't think it should matter. I shouldn't have had that one grafted. I guess that was an accident. Anyway, the form's here. It's kind of opening up. It's kind of these rolling sheets. I think of it as a massive kind of architectural, space to crawl into. And yeah, it's not really, that's imaginatory. I mean, illustrative. It doesn't have to be real. I've made so much stuff in my life, does the world really need more things on it? I kind of like this infinite realm of the computer and going in here, which seems to be a space to find meaning. I guess that makes sense. Anyway, I thought, why don't I take a for each loop and run it through a while loop? And that was pretty cool. So it basically grabs your maximum value, and as long as it's under that maximum value, it'll throw out some more data. And of course, I'm keeping track of all the data. This data is coming in here. This data is coming in here. We can take a look at it. Lovely. What's happening after that process? Well, now I'm getting a tree of information, which I like. And then what I like is the while loop starts to zip around in here and have some fun with this data. So not only did I have this data here in 3 sections, now I've actually broken it into these kind of spontaneous, blasted arrays. And what does that do geometrically? Well, that does pretty cool things geometrically. I'm not sure if I can pull out the form of what it does, but as I bring it off into this, a random number generator that's going to take a min and max as I grab my data. And I love the flattening graphs and see what's happening. I threw it through a count of 3, and yes, you can take your seeds, and you're gonna totally make different forms. So what's nice about a seed is you can come back to kind of that one you sort of liked. So you got all these different models for these canopies, and I know a lot of people see this as just total and utter chaos, but to find something you like, how do you know what you like? I mean, really, how do you know what you like to eat until you eat it? And so it's like, just get in there, play with it a little bit, play off the surfaces, let them kind of undulate, let them be unrealistic and unfabricatable, because that's up to your engineering self to start to figure that out. I like this, and I've done a lot in sheeting and bricks and steel and materials, so this allows for a lot of imaginative processes to have an effect on what's going on. Actually, I like this one, and all I did was throw it through a different seed, and that was a random number generation. Very small script as well. Really nice. There's a little bit of data here, and I'm pulling this out of the Technology University in Warsaw. I don't know if anybody can really own these. I mean, anybody can use component message, and anybody can create a list, and anybody can throw it through a for loop. I do think this random number generator is a nice little script of just taking your min and max and then adding your min to it. So that makes computational sense to me. So my mind is at least that intelligent. And then I can't forget, as I get this data, and you can see what's happening to the data now. It's getting a little jivey. It's starting to pack down into other trees. I hope it doesn't return to the trees of what it was. It's gone through this number, this number more like chemical forming of what's going to happen. And, this is all kind of like cooking to me. And certainly like foundry work, because I've had about 20 years, 25 years of casting metal of all different sorts. And there's been a lot of chaos and beauty. And for the large part, it's been delightful, somewhat profitable. And now I have the liberty of getting back into my mind and playing around with this. Now, I love the graph mapper. As soon as I see data and it starts behaving nastily, not just like one path with, one set of indices at the end of the tree. It's like, I got to get in there and I have to throw in the path mapper and start to play with it a little bit. And I understand enough with the patterns and drawing it out that if it's not in the form I want, I can start jostling around and looking for zeros and looking for zeros in the A path and zeros in the B path and zeros in the I path, which would have been the C path, but I switched that out. And then with a little simplification, I can get some nice rows of data. Now that data is all generated to form those simple lines. And here they are simplified again. It's 32 items in each one. Very nice number. 9 paths each, 9 branches with these paths. Now, obviously, if you knew what you wanted, you could work towards this, and you can model towards that through CAD. But computationally, I don't know where I'm going to come from. I don't know where I want to go. These scripts are not models to be sold online as this is it, this is what you need. It's an example of playing with what I think would be how I've had a sense of discovery in my life, which is Lego erector sets, take karate, but make up your own moves in the backyard, do your math equations, go home and graph different things, find your own asymptotes. Maybe I was a little weird in that. And definitely Dungeons and Dragons. My God, if this doesn't relate to Dungeons and Dragons, I don't know what does. And so hopefully we've got the same people that are interested in, obviously that kind of creativity with the set rules and generating your own kind of worlds and objects. Anyway, I threw it through another one, which was a great method: create an open and periodic curve from control points. So let's treat those like control points. Go in and see how that script is written. And that's not too hard. Oh my gosh, just a NURBS curve. Is the NURBS curve how to create? If you need a periodic, a degree, and some control points. Well, I think I have those, as long as it's not null. It's a nice little test in there. Run it through and make it periodic or make it not periodic. Now I have a set of curves. I have 9 branches with 1 item on each, and I know how to use a loft. And that's basically what I did. And that's where it gets a little chaotic. You can control your data more, try and bring this in, think about it. You've generated some lines, a lot of hullabaloo to get some wavy, wonderful, wiggly, biggly lines to make this canopy. And I guess if you wanted to pipe these and think about bending and forming pipe, to do this, or wrought iron or steel, then you can get in and manufacture it. But once again, that's the job of the architect and the artist and the engineer. Maybe not the architect, but I'm going to just it's going to fall. If I do a false, it's not going to have anything to lock to, but it does get me to the arms. And then if I take my degree, I can push that back into just a polyline, and that makes up for a different kind of crazy shape and straightens it up a little bit. But I really like my if you're going to play with NURBS, you may as well play with a degree that's interesting, not just polyline. And that's it. That's my little sample of my wonderful canopy, and I'm going to go live in it under the backyard next year. It's going to be fun. It is a sense of discovery. Let's just do a little bake on that. Grab that and pull that over here. And we've got another one to play with, and there you go. Maybe I'll just grab these two and just scoot them over a little bit more. And we're waiting for the next generation. And I like them. They're just a little creative world that you could build. I guess if you work this way, you could show this kind of understanding of how to negotiate nodes and work them in a system, and then you could go deeper and show that you have an understanding of C scripting. And what I think I've found for myself is a happy medium. The GH Python node and the C nodes have always intrigued me. The VB script I haven't gotten into, but I was into Rhino a little bit, looking into the tools, going into the Python script editor. I'm sure if I went in there, there'd be an old script that I was playing around with, pretty basic. Learning that got me pointed towards Rhino script syntax. I had a lot of questions, but I love this dot notation to go in and play with and change, and for me to have control, not just the way I used to having Grasshopper as nodes, but now have that control through C and scripting and coming up with more and more of these nodes. I don't think it's a matter of me distributing them. I mean, they're pretty basic. It's a matter of making your palette for yourself, whether it's something technological, dealing with arrays or information, whether it's basic, intermediate, or complex as some of these very detailed algorithms I was pulling off of RIISA. Yeah, I'm not, and I do notice that when I look into companies that are looking for people and looking for students, they're looking for something creative done by the student. And I like to tell my students, my reference letter is going to have 3 things that you did that weren't related to school. Those were those exceptional things that went above and beyond and found for yourself. So, I'm almost 50, got a happy family here. I'm happy with where I'm spending my time, and I'm certainly intrigued with what can happen up here, and I'm in it for that reason. So, a few people online, thank you for the encouragement, and I'll keep going and trying to catch up to your 8 to 20 years experience, considering I've only gotten into computational art in the last 2 years. And C, I think I started 2-3 months ago. So it's been a hard, fast learn. Have a great day. See you soon.